Tech fans, what's going on? So, hardly can believe it. The season is going to end this week for the Tigers, and I gotta admit, I'm sad to see it go. For the first time since 2016, well, really, 17, 18, 19, 20, they were hard years to watch. Last year, I think, was the season I gave the less shits about for the Tigers for the first time in my life because it was so hard to watch that season without any fans. It was just like watching backyard pickup baseball to me. But really, since the first time, since I want to say probably 14, I'm really sad to see the season go. I mean, I'm sad every year, but I'm really sad to see it go this year because even though we were under 500, it's been really fun to watch this team this year with the improvements of the rebuild and AJ Hinch's first year, the emergence of some of these young guys that we've got to see. It's been just really fun, and it's going to be sad that, especially when baseball's over here coming like another month when the playoffs finish, I'm going to come home from work, and you guys, similar situations, however you watch, what time of the day you watch, whether you're coming home from work or, it's your daily routine. You go to turn on the game at 7:10, and they're just not going to be there. And, here in Southern Ohio, we don't get nearly the snow that we did when I lived in Detroit, but it's getting cold outside. Hockey's coming back. There's not going to be much for me to watch on TV because there is the NFL. So I'm sad about it. We're coming into the last week of the season. This video, I don't want to get too in depth about end of season recaps and stuff like that. I guess this will just be a brief thing just to touch on the week that was. Baseball Banter does come back next week. I'm going to make my first Baseball Banter video for the playoffs, to preview the playoffs, all the matchups and everything else like that. A little quick preview, I guess, of what's going on. The wild cards and stuff are really only the American League is anything interesting right now because the Cardinals won 15 straight. I don't know if they won today or not. I didn't check the score yet, but they had won 15 straight games. The Padres got eliminated. And how about this, Tiger fans? We are within 4 wins of what the Padres finished with. A team that, mind you, their team was extremely hurt this year. And I think what did them in is when they didn't get Max Scherzer at the trade deadline, and their pitching was so hurt, and Yu Darvish underperformed. No Mike Clevenger this year. They didn't have really anyone else at the top of their rotation to really help Mike Musgrove out. And, Fernando Tatis was on the DL a few times this year, and the offense really struggled. The Tatis not being able to throw a ball across the infield and how bad their defense really kind of was. A team had so much expectations, and they're the same place the Tigers are. And the Tigers have almost as many wins as them. The Padres are barely going to finish above 500. And the Tigers, so they would have to win out to go above 500. But I think they're going to finish with 79 wins, which I thought this year they would finish with 73 or 75. That's what I said coming into this year. I was pretty dead nuts set on it. And I was pretty close. For them to come as close to 500 is insane. But we'll touch more on that at the end of the season recap and whatnot. But for the preview of the playoffs, the only really interesting one is Boston, New York. New York has already taken the first 2 games against the Red Sox. They're going for the sweep tonight. Basically, it's between New York, Toronto, and Boston for that second wild card spot in the AL East. The Tampa Bay Rays already clinched. The Astros are going to clinch here pretty soon. The Brewers clinched. The White Sox clinched. The Dodgers and Giants is going to be an interesting one because you're going to have 200-win teams that one of them is going to be playing a one-game play-in. It's going to, I want to say it was 2014 or 2015. The NL Central was really good because the Pirates, I think, won 97 games, and they lost in that one-game wild card against the Giants. It had to be 2014 because the Giants won the World Series that year. They lost in that one-game wild card against the Giants, and they got ousted. And they were a 97-win team. And then the Cubs are really good. The Brewers or the Cardinals were really good. That's that one year the NL Central had just like a bunch of really good teams. I think they had 3 playoff teams in it, 2 wild cards and a division winner. I can't remember if it was 15 or 14. But neither here nor there, the playoffs are pretty much locked up besides for who's going to be the winner of the NL West and who's going to be the second wild card. I really hope it's Toronto's going to take it in the East because I don't really want to see the Yankees in there. The Yankees have been such a boring team to watch this year. They're either really hot and they're winning 13 games in a row, and then they're following that off with a massive losing streak, and it's just no fun to watch. I don't think their team's that interesting. They're just such a streaky team. I mean, I'd rather see Vladdy Guerrero in there and Bo Bichette in there and see Jose Barrios finally see what he can do in a playoff situation, or Alek Manoah. I really like watching the Blue Jays. They have a fun team, and I'd rather see them in the playoffs. Or Marcus Semien. He just had the most home runs ever for a second baseman in Major League history. It is 43rd. That team has so many fun players to watch. So I'd rather see them in the playoffs versus seeing the Yankees in there. And I mean, these games between the Red Sox and Yankees, I've watched both of them so far. They've been really good. Like Giancarlo Stanton last night hit a grand slam, and Aroldis Chapman made it interesting in the ninth. But I'd much rather watch the Blue Jays and Red Sox. I think that'd be a way better game to watch. Excuse me. So for the Tigers this week, they were supposed to play 3 with the White Sox. They actually took both games against the White Sox, and the third game got postponed, so that actually qualifies as a sweep. So KC, and I did not know this, KC and the Tigers in the AL Central. So the Tigers have the best record in the AL Central since the All-Star break, which is no surprise. They think they're floating on 5th or 6th best record in the American League since the All-Star break. I think they are 8 games over 500, and then the Royals are actually 3 games over 500. But after them taking 2 games from the Tigers, they're 5 games over 500 since the All-Star break. And the Royals actually have some really pesky players. They have so many young guys in that team. They're pretty much running out an all-rookie rotation, which is similar to what the Tigers are doing. It's like a lot of young guys coming up. But the Royals have a lot of young talent, and it's almost like deja vu all over again of like watching them in 2013 when all these guys started coming up and you could see the makings of a team, because they still got Bobby Witt Jr., who's the best prospect in baseball, who's going to be coming up potentially next year. On top of, they still got Mondesi and Whit Merrifield, who's he's really underrated. If he didn't play for Kansas City, if he played in a bigger market, more people would know about him. But he's like such a good hitter, really good defender. He's like, I wouldn't even say he's a poor man's Jose Altuve, because I think Whit Merrifield led the league in hits already. He's a really, really good player, and that's what Salvi Perez has done behind the dishes here, hitting the most home runs in Major League history for a catcher. They just have a really good team, and I really like Brady Singer. They have some pieces in that bullpen that's how they built their team last time. I mean, if you look at the Royals when they went to back-to-back World Series in 14-15, you had so many young players all coming up, whether it was Locane, Alcides Escobar, Mike Moustakas, Eric Hosmer, Salvi Perez when he was a little bit younger. It's hard to believe Salvi Perez is on 31, but Salvi Perez was a little bit younger then. And, Yandaran Ventura when he was still alive. And then you had the veteran presence that was really nicely sprinkled in there with Johnny Cueto and Jeremy Guthrie, and then that back end of the bullpen with Calvin Herrera and Greg Holland and Wade Davis. That team was so damn hard to beat, because when you were down after 5 innings in that game, because they could put Chris Young out on that mound and they could get three runs off of him or 2 runs off of him, but the Royals would score 5 because they had that. And they had Alex Gordon still out when Alex Gordon was still really good, but they'd put up 5 runs on you, and that would be it. You weren't coming out and getting anything off of Calvin Herrera, Wade Davis, and Greg Holland, and then they had some other guys just sitting in there who they had. I could think of his name. He was a closer for the Kyle. It wasn't Kyle Kendricks, but I can't remember. He was a closer for the Angels, and then he was supposed to be a closer for the Phillies, but then he got hurt and he was out of baseball for a few years, and I think he ended up going to the Dodgers. It doesn't matter. My point was the bullpen was really good, and the Royals are kind of doing the same thing, where it looked like the rebuild was going to be really long, like how the Tigers was going to be. But the thing is with them is they already got a World Series championship out of that team, and they lost other players, and they were able to rebuild again. And you can see what is already in the making for them. They're like on the same pace as the Tigers, and they rebuilt it really fast. And what sucks is they already got back-to-back World Series appearances out of it, 14-15. The Tigers haven't got shit. And, now the Tigers are coming up, and they're getting good. And they got to battle a young White Sox team that just has stud after stud after stud with that really good pitching staff. And now they got this young up-and-coming Royals team. And the Indians are always really good at developing young pitching. And like dudes like Tristan McKenzie, and they're going to have back Shane Bieber back next year and whatnot. They have a really good, and then Emmanuel Clase, and they still have Jose Ramirez and Franmil Reyes. It's like really the only team in that division that looks like crap is the Twins. But the Twins could reload. You never know. They still got Byron Buxton if he could ever stay healthy. But the Tigers, the thing that sucks about for the Tigers is they're coming up in a division that has so many good teams. And it's like their Tigers are getting good, but it's like the Royals are... They got some dudes on that team, and they're a pesky team. Like, Hunter Dozier came into this series, and he sucked. He was like 4 for 49, and then went off on a huge extra base tear against the Tigers, just really pesky hits. Akil Baddoo robbed a homer of him in yesterday's game, and it was just jumped up at the wall. Clear as day would have been a homer. Absolute athletic leap, and saved a home run for Tarek Skubal. And both Tarek Skubal and Casey Mize both looked great. Tarek Skubal ended up getting a 4th inning. I was super surprised because the Tigers have been so dead set on keeping him and Mize both at 3 innings a start, because Hutchinson and Urania have been chasing those guys, and they've been doing their thing about getting those guys like piggyback starts. But excuse me, Baddoo robbed that homer, and then Willie Castro robbed a homer. But the Tigers, they ended up squandering this series. They had a nice win yesterday. They ended up getting to that Royals bullpen and ended up loading the bases, and Miggy came up with a big hit, a couple of runs, scored. The Tigers win 5-1. And then today, they get into the 9th inning against Barlow, ended up loading the bases with 1 out. And Nico Goodrum, this was the at-bat of the game. He comes up with the bases loaded. He's ahead in the count, and he chases a couple of pitches. And then the one pitch, because he took a strike and then chased a strike, and then the one pitch that he shouldn't have chased, and it was the worst pitch of the whole at bat, he swung at, and that would have walked in the run. And what sucked the worst is Isaac Paredes was up, and he hit a double down the line, but the ball went into the stands, and if it didn't go into the damn stands, then it would have been a tying run. It was a ground rule double, so it screwed the Tigers over by getting a ground rule double, because that runner would have for sure scored from third, because if it would have bounced and hit the corner and caromed, there would have been no chance they got it. They would have been tied, and there would have been a chance to actually take the game. But Goodrum comes up, works the count, makes him work, and Barlow was all over the place. He had a couple walks in the inning, and he swings at the one pitch he shouldn't have swung at. And it didn't make any sense, because some of the takes he had in that at-bat to even get ahead in the count were way closer pitches than that. And then Harold Castro comes up, and Harold Castro's been pretty clutch. I mean, he's had a lot of big hits. And I knew it. Barlow was absolutely throwing a boatload of curveballs to all the Tigers hitters that inning. I don't know if it's just because he didn't have command of his fastball. He's throwing a lot of curveballs. And he chased a freaking outside curveball after getting a 94-mile-an-hour fastball on the outer edge, and just chased it, and he was flat-footed. I think wasn't expecting a breaking ball, and that was it. And I was really disappointed, because the Tigers had a prime opportunity in that game, because they could not touch the Royal starters. They had a really hard time against Royal starters this series. They got 7 innings against him, and then I forget the starter last night. He wore number 85. He was a young kid. They had a really hard time hitting him. He had a really good changeup last night. He was throwing, just had the Tigers completely off balance. It was really bad at bats, but they finally got to the Royals bullpen of the 8th inning, and they're getting to the Royals bullpen again today, and they had an opportunity, but they squandered it, and it stinks. A little more injury news to finish this up, because like I said, this video is not going to be long, because I want to save it for the year-end recap. Victor Reyes got hurt. He hurt his groin. Normally it would be a 10-day IL, standing to be back, but since there's only 9 days left of the season, he's done for the year, which really stinks, because Victor Reyes has been hitting extremely well. I've been very critical of Victor Reyes, and rightfully so. I mean, he was so bad this year, the Tigers sent him down. But he's come in the second half, he's put up a really good WRC+. Doesn't have much extra base power, but he'll flash it. He had that one game, it wasn't against, it might have been against, it was against the Rays, where he hit that 3-run shot in the 8th inning, and he hit it a really long way. So he's got sneaky power. He just doesn't show it that much. But his consistency over the second half of the season, really the last month, has been really impressive. I mean, he's been a real slappy hit, slap the ball over the place, use his speed kind of guy. He's done a pretty good job out in the outfield too. So he's definitely been playing himself into at-bats that the Tigers have been giving him, that he's definitely earned. Right now, they had to recall Zach Short, And, Zach Short really isn't going to get much time either, because I think the Tigers are really trying to take a really hard look at Nico Goodrum, because what are they going to do, release him or not? And I think he's the odd man out of the infield, and I've been saying that all year, because he was a Gold Glove finalist, but he's not good at short, and I'm going to keep reiterating that. He's not good at short. You can put him in the outfield, you can put him at second, but I think the Tigers have so many infield pieces that they need to shit or get off the pot on, that he's going to be the odd man out, because the Tigers need to give these guys some looks, and especially if they go out and sign one of the big shortstops this offseason, because they need a shortstop, because they got such a logjam of middle infielders and so much talent. And now, having Victor Reyes gone, look, they got Daz Cameron, but I think, Daz Cameron really still doesn't look good at the plate. He's only had really a couple of... Daz looked okay. The one time he looked okay so far this year is when he came up and he hit his first major league home run and ended up hitting a couple of home runs over the course of 2 weeks, and then he got hurt, and then he was sent back down to the minors. Because really, Derek Hill had played himself into an everyday spot as being the everyday center fielder so far, but then he got hurt hitting G-Man Choi at first base. So now, with Victor Reyes gone, Daz is going to get some more looks. He's still got Akil Baddoo, still got Robbie Grossman. So they got plenty of depth. And then Isaac Paredes is getting some opportunities at second and whatnot. And you still got Willie Castro and Harold Castro. So the Tigers have a lot of depth to fill these spots over the last week of the season. And it's going to give them a nice little extended window for some of these guys that would have not gotten any at-bats if it wasn't for the injuries, to get some at-bats, to get some final looks for the end of the year. Because the Tigers are in a situation where if they go out and sign a shortstop, they have way too many people and not enough spots, and they need to figure out who's going to be bench depth, who do you want to keep floating around in the upper minors of the system for positional depth in case more guys get hurt, and who do we want to move on from, because we have other guys coming up. Because the dudes in the minor leagues, if Torkelson is really finding it in the last couple days of the season. He's had a home run in the last 3 games in a row. And you look at Ryan Kreidler and Riley Green's numbers, those guys are making a push for it too. So the Tigers, they have a serious situation of brewing with how good the guys in AAA are doing. And, if they have a good first month of the season, and the Tigers are struggling to find everyday guys like they did earlier this year, because, look at how many shortstops we've had. Look how many second basemen we've had this year. It's been a merry-go-round of the infield. Luckily, the Tigers have had the positional depth to field the merry-go-round, and they've had a lot of guys they're trying to give looks to, because Hinch, unlike Gardenhire, who would let these guys go out there because they were vets and get many crappy at-bats, Hinch has been sending these guys down. Look how many times Zach Short's been sent down. He's been sent down 4 times this year, or maybe even 5. And then you see when someone like Harold or Willie was struggling at short, like Willie Castro struggling at short, he got moved to second and he got some of his playing time cut. AJ Hinch doesn't mess around. Like, you gotta perform to get these at bats, and he'll give you the look. Like, if you have a nice little game, whatnot, you'll get a couple days opportunity. But if you're not out there performing and helping the team, your playing time does get limited, and you're more of a roll bat. Zach Short was the only one really so far this year that got to benefit from the Tigers needing a spot, because they needed someone that had a glove, because they had such a hard time finding someone that could play it defensively, and Short could play it defensively. He just was really bad with the stick. So he got a lot longer look. That was really about it. But you look at someone like in the outfield, how hard it's been for Cameron to get at bats this year and even stay on the team, and how hard Hill had to work, and how hard Victor Reyes had to work because of Akil Baddoo and Robbie Grossman. So it's a fantastic problem to have. The Tigers got a lot of depth. So that's going to be for next week's video, where we do end-of-year recap and looking forward at the position battles and whatnot like that, and previewing what I think is going to go on. Baseball Banter returns next week. It's just me. I am working on trying to find a co-host for this. I need to figure out how I can actually have a second person, so it's just not me on here rambling for 45 minutes on a podcast, because no one wants to hear that. I don't want to hear that. But next week it'll be me flying solo. I'm gonna try to find someone and figure out how I can record this, because you can't do Google Hangouts anymore on YouTube. So I don't know. That's all I got for you guys. Last week of the season. Enjoy it. These might be some last times you see some of these guys, because moves are coming. Tigers have a lot of depth and not enough space. And Chris Ilitch said they're going to be players this year in the free agent market. So I'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.